I have a few controversial opinions to share, and I want you all to prepare your tits. I didn't like One Punch Man Season 1. I told you guys to calm your tits down, but whatever. Let me explain why I don't like the first season, okay? It's not that I don't like the first season in its entirety, I just hated the second half. The first half was fantastic. It's a great comedy with great lively characters and epic battles. It's just that by the time they go into the sea monster arc, it starts to really drag. Especially when Saitama just wanders around being escorted by Moomin Rider. This is the kind of person who can dodge Sonic. He should be able to get into one place and punch this monster in an instant and save everybody in a flash, and yet the arc drags in for like 3 episodes, not giving any sort of substance to the entire series because Saitama couldn't figure out how to use Google Maps. The only thing that it does is to completely weaken Genos and pull off one hell of a cringy speech offered by Moomin Rider.
You don't seem very afraid.
You don't seem very frightening.
Yes. The bravery of the soldier. Bravery is by far the kindest word for stupidity, don't you think?
Sorry, but this arc is, like, it pisses me off. This arc takes like 3 episodes and it just wastes my freaking time. It makes the battle with the final boss, which for the record is awesome, to be a lot less awesome. I wish that the anime could just build up more for the battle with the final boss, which is build it up from season 1 or something, but unfortunately they have to follow the manga and lots of restrictions come in play, which is just... I can't wait for season 2 though. I can't wait for they handle the King arc, the Blizzard arc, the Garo arc. I just really want to see all of those to be, at least be entertaining. I still recommend watching season 1 because even though I don't like it as much as I wanted to, I think others would find it likable, others would find it enjoyable. It's just that that particular arc in the second half is just insanely dragging and it's just kind of pointless. And that made my impression towards season 1 to be a lot less positive. I have controversial opinions, but despite how controversial these opinions can be, at least I try to be in some ways reasonable about it, or accurate to the source of what drives me to have these opinions. People can have different opinions and interpretations, and I can't help that. But today, however, we're going to discuss something very interesting, let's just say. So what happens if you have a controversial opinion? Well, people are going to react to it. And how bad these reactions can go? Well, pretty bad. Today's controversial opinion both involves Zelda Breath of the Wild. Full disclosure before you guys accuse me of being a fanboy, I have not played this game. I never played the game, and I never have any memories of Zelda, in fact. I am not saying, oh, those reviewers that gave the game 7 out of 10, they're all wrong because I disagree with them. Because saying that would be really dishonest. I haven't played the game. I'm simply trying to show the stupidity on the reactions that come from either the reviewers or the gamers who read the reviews. It's not about whether or not the game is good or bad because I don't have an opinion on it. It's about the reviews and how people handle it because there are some really stupid things to discuss. So I'm coming into this with the most unbiased lens as possible, although that can be interpreted as an uninformed lens as well since I have zero clue about Zelda. Now, since I haven't played Breath of the Wild myself, I'm going to have an article from Techraptor about Breath of the Wild reviews to help me on this journey. It's a brilliant article that breaks down all of the reviews on Breath of the Wild, the positive ones, the negative ones, the most common complaints, and even the unreasonable ones, all covered up in that article. It's great. Go have a read on it. The first controversial opinion came from Jim Sterling. I have my disagreements with Jim Sterling, but since I haven't played Breath of the Wild, I cannot voice in my disagreements with him on this particular game. According to Techraptor, Jim Sterling on his review is actually pretty fair on the game and that his arguments are pretty sound, although he has his biases. I mean, compare and contrast his review of Breath of the Wild and his review of Horizon Zero Dawn, which I have played Horizon Zero Dawn but not for long. Regardless of whether or not you agree with him, Jim posted this review of Breath of the Wild. He gave it 7 out of 10. Alright, so far so good, but people's complaints is that the review contributed into the Metacritic score and it dropped the game from 98 to 97. And this got people so riled up to the point where Jim said that his site got DDoSed. Well, Jim, you have a controversial opinion and people are going to come into your site thanks to you having that controversial opinion. I think the DDoS came from how your negative your review is and your site just couldn't handle the traffic. Regardless, there are some of you who subscribe to me thanks to my unreliability of modern critics video, and from that video I just highlighted that Metacritic is just really damn stupid. I think critics in general are really damn stupid. I mean, Iron Fist is not the greatest TV show ever, but come on, it's not that bad. Call of Duty Ghost, on the other hand, okay, it's not that good. But then someone shared this story, and honestly, this is the sort of story that actually pissed me off beyond belief. We all know how Metacritic's critic scores are insanely unreliable, but apparently some people still don't get it. Game developers, don't use Metacritic as like a judge for everything. Something really dumb happened in the form of the developers of Fallout New Vegas, Obsidian, lost bonus thanks to the drop of 1 point. Yep, they don't get the bonus thanks to one missing score in Metacritic. I mean, you have to be a really damn dumb businessman to think that Metacritic's critic score is reliable to inform the quality of a certain product. Whoever is in charge of this is a dumbass. Bethesda, can you please hand over Fallout to Obsidian just one more time? Anyway, going back to Jim Sterling, this entire drama spawns this one article.
Stop taking review scores personally. Great news! Nintendo will probably survive even if one reviewer thinks Zelda Breath of the Wild is just alright.
Well, nobody is saying that Nintendo is going to fall when one reviewer says negative review, but then again, we're talking Nintendo fanboys here.
Video game companies are not your friends. You are not their soldiers. You will not be rewarded for your fervent loyalty or service. Alternatively, and more crudely, calm your tits.
Yeah, tell that to every Nintendo shill ever that defends any sort of censorship from their game. Ever. I mean, Jesus Christ, these people.
This missive is inspired by the fact that it took me 20 minutes to access Jim Sterling's review of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Between DDoS attacks and a common threat that's becoming larger and more vicious than Calamity Ganon, Sterling's site is barely clawing at the time of this writing. The abuse isn't limited to the site either. Sterling has been dealing with a deluge of death threats on social media for his terrible review of Link's latest adventure.
Well, you can still use archiving sites to get to his site without the worries of DDoS. As for death threats, I'm gonna need evidence on that, please.
What counts as terrible? Sterling complains about the game's weapon degradation, bad voice acting, and inconsistent frame rates, but praises the game's character and imaginative world. He might have gotten away with it, but he committed the grave sin of quantifying his complaints with a number, a dreaded 7 out of 10. Cry havoc and let slip the Volvos of war.
Okay, I agree that review scores are stupid. They're just stupid in general. You cannot quantify your feelings towards something in a number. Maybe you can at least try to overgeneralize it, maybe say, oh, I recommend this or not, but which is why people need to read reviews and watch reviews instead of actually just, oh, skip to the scores. It's a very simplistic way of measuring things, and frankly, I also disagree. So if you're telling people to calm their tits down because the people are giving Jim Sterling DDoS attacks and death threats just because, well, he has different opinions, I agree. But how about the people that give legitimate criticisms to him? I mean, so far, the evidence of DDoS that we got is from Jim Sterling's words, and no evidence of death threats so far. The comments can be vicious, the comments can be like tons and tons of people get angry, but, well, that's the nature of the internet, you can't really stop it.
Sane people are aghast at the outrage, and there's been a lot of talk about how Nintendo/Zelda fans are a rabid bunch. I hate to pull a not all fans here, but it's important to note our reviewer Kathy suffered from a similar torrent of bile over her low-scoring review of Horizon Zero Dawn, a Sony exclusive, and that came with an added benefit of gendered insults.
Oh, so you're also talking about people who talk shit at you. Well, people are going to have a spat on the internet, especially when you have controversial opinions, especially when you give a game that was highly acclaimed to have a low score. The thing is, when you review something, and yes, by the way, just in case you missed it, I review stuff, you're also going to get lots and lots of hate comments. You're also going to get people say, oh, I disagree with you, or this and this and that. Oh, you're stupid, you're an idiot. That happens regardless of whether or not your opinions go against the mainstream or go with the mainstream. You can't exactly control what other people think. So the best thing that I can say is for you, just deal with it. Especially when your opinions are controversial or goes against the mainstream. If you really have controversial opinions, you really need to give a damn good reason or one that can make other people go, okay, I disagree, but I understand where you're coming from. It's your reasoning and not the opinion. If the reasoning is terrible and people call you out on it, try to address it. I made a controversial review of Rogue One, and I say I didn't like it because the characters are bland and the story is just meh. That got people pissed, although I stand by my points. It's just my own personal, honest opinion. But I don't go hyperbolic on it. I don't go, Rogue One is the worst movie since The Phantom Menace or something just for clickbait. It's just, I want to be fair as well. It's just my personal opinion. Anyway, speaking of controversial opinions, what's yours? Maybe there's an anime or a game that you love but everybody else hates, or a movie or a book or an anime or a manga or novel that you hate but everybody else loves. I'm very sure some of you guys have one. Please share it on the comments below. I hate Minecraft. I hate superhero movies. I hate Beyonce. Whoa. Hang on there, friend. Don't you think that petty contrarianism and half-baked cynicism are a poor substitute for the genuine thoughtfulness that I know you're capable of? Perhaps you should consider defining yourself by what you like, rather than what you hate. Well, I like Donald Trump.
This matter of over-the-top frothing and screaming over review scores and subsequent fretting over a game's final Metacritic number is not weighted more on one company, publisher, or system. It's endemic to video games in general, and it's time for it to stop. Though I expect saying as much as it will be as effective as shooting a Nerf gun at a charging rhino.
Yes, I think we can all agree on that, which is why I'm telling game developers and publishers as well to, for the love of God, stop worrying about review scores. Start caring about their actual review, because those are where the legitimate criticism's from. Those are where you can actually improve. And speaking of review scores, Amy Schumer recently made this conspiracy theory of how her awful Netflix stand-up is being hijacked by misogynist alt-right trolls because she got like 1 star around. Hey Amy, maybe because you're not funny. Maybe because your humor consists of you talking about your vagina a lot. You know, for a feminist, they sure as hell objectify themselves. A lot. Anyway, regardless of your opinions on that, we have an even more embarrassing example, and this is coming from none other than Niche Gamer of all things, a video gaming site that I like. Now, believe it or not, the topic of this video regarding reviews, controversial opinions, and reactions, Niche Gamer has the worst example. Worse than Jim Sterling's. I am not kidding. Techraptor also mentioned the review by Michael Jordan from Niche Gamer, so why is this review so bad? Well, I love that the reviewer said, you should question the integrity of reviewers who gave this game like 10 out of 10. When looking outside, there are tons of people, not just reviewers, who think that this is one of the best Zelda games to have come out in recent years. Look, people can have different opinions to you, but you also need to understand what other people think. If people universally praise this game and you say, I didn't like it that much, at least acknowledge that other people love it. I didn't like The Dark Knight Rises, but the people who love that movie, they're not assholes, they're not idiots. I can understand why they love the movie, and I respect their opinions, and I don't go, you should question the integrity of those who say this movie is awesome. It's just goddamn opinions, man. They're like assholes. Everybody's got one. I also love that you accuse them of lying for simply having a different opinion. I mean, come on, man. And here's how Techraptor broke the entire review down.
The actual review itself is surprisingly positive compared to the previous examples and more consistent with its given score, which praises the visual exploration, sound effects, and the vast, varied, and unique landscapes. But when negative issues are brought up, they dip into weak assertions that contradict some of these claims. The expected technical issues are addressed and valid to an extent, but something that no reviewer, as far as I know, claims is that the frame rate issues impact not only the visuals but the general game feel and your ability to play the game. Add this to the potential for your controller to desync at random and you have a recipe for frustration. I feel as though Jordan's frustration with the combat come more from anger towards the game's difficulty, which is reasonable enough, than the technical performance, which is provably playable even with its occasional hiccups, even on the Wii U. To say that many encounters require that the game is working perfectly for you to have a successful fight is not consistently reproducible. As a side note, bashing the game for Switch's hardware hitch with Joy-Cons disconnecting is misplaced.
That sounds bad, but this is the one that interests me.
He concludes that no one should listen to day one reviews, and that this is easily the weakest Legend of Zelda game in the last 20 years, and some simple design choices combined with the time to QA correctly could have produced the best game in the series.
The weakest Zelda game in the past 20 years? I don't know about you guys, but I've heard games from Zelda in the past 20 years that are worse. I've heard people say that Skyward Sword was bad, and that's one of the main entries in the Zelda series. I don't know, I'm not a Zelda fan, so maybe some of you Zelda fans can actually comment down below. I love that Techraptor called him out for basically being really damn arrogant on handling the criticisms on his review, and unfortunately, that didn't stop there. Here's basically a PSA video response to the people's criticisms on the review.
But let's actually talk about why you're here, and that is the definition of intelligence in the way that I used it for my Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild review. Jesus Christ, did that thing blow up, didn't it, people?
Yes, it blew up, and you made lots and lots of hyperbolic points to the point where it gets very inaccurate at times. People are bringing that up, but you say that the voice acting in the game is almost The Room levels of bad. Hello? I watched a couple of playthroughs, and yes, it was bad, but it wasn't, I did not hit her.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
That's quite an exaggeration, don't you think?
That thing has over 1,000 comments across our page, the fucking YouTube, and the tweets. It's massive. For everybody who supported it and understood how I was saying it, thank you very much.
You thanked them to the point where you pin down a positive comment on the video when the videos consist of nothing but negative comments across the board. People pin positive comments a lot. I don't. I only pin comments if there's a mistake and I want to correct it, but pinning that positive comment is sketchy.
I saw you guys defending. I saw you guys talking back and forth and the greater ideas. And a lot of you guys went in to go get that fucking popcorn because you saw that score and you're like, people are gonna fucking blow up. And you were right, you know? I really didn't think that it was gonna be that bad.
You made a very negative sounding review off of a game that people consider to be masterpieces with incredibly hyperbolic points. And you don't see how that's going to blow up.
I didn't think people would be sending me death threats and shit. That was one thing I was like, oh, really? Over Legend of Zelda? I think you're cashing your chips early when you threaten somebody with death over a Legend of Zelda review. That kind of ruins it later on in your life if you're ever gonna fucking threaten somebody.
Michael, Niche Gamer, you're well aware of how Gamergate works, right? Evidence of death threats or GTFO. I made reviews critical of other things like Rogue One, Attack on Titan, and Naruto, and I don't get death threats. The only death threat that I got was when I was writing a fanfiction with terrible grammar. That one made me laugh more than anything.
But yeah, so, and then there was the other people who were like, oh, this thing's better than sex. Like, dude, you haven't had sex. If that's what you're saying, it's a fucking 10, it's better than sex. You haven't had sex.
What in the name of God? Did you just insult people and calling them virgins for having criticisms of your review? Wow. I expect better. I really expect better. This is the sort of thing that IGN would do, not Niche Gamer. How is that even relevant? Is that really what they're trying to argue? I mean, Jesus Christ.
I mean, if you're going to relate it to sex, at most it was a fucking hand job in a dirty motel. Probably sticky and awkward. You didn't make eye contact. There's no real context. Maybe you had a couple drinks. You thought it was a good idea, but it was... you know, it wasn't a good idea.
Can you at least address some of people's criticisms on your review instead of going on straw man and hyperbole? This is insanely unprofessional. I expect more out of Niche Gamer, I really do, but man, the doubling down on this is pathetic. You're only making yourself look pathetic in this instance. Look, I accept that people have different opinions. I can understand how and why people love certain games I hate or hate certain games I love. But when you try to express those disagreements, at least try to sound reasonable. At least have points that make people go, oh, I see where this guy is coming from. Instead of go, her there, virgin losers, her there.
Dude, you haven't had sex.
I disagree with people a lot, and sometimes I call people names and insult them for my own personal satisfaction. But I always try to at least have points and engage in the argument, which is something that you didn't do throughout this video. I just want to give a little bit of a PSA from one reviewer into another. I'm not exactly the best reviewer out there, but if you are reviewing something, be fair and try to understand where people are coming from. The key word here is understanding. Yes, people can have different opinions, but trying to understand where or how they can get into those opinions is the most interesting part. If they say this game is bad, you're gonna go, wait, what? Why? Because that's the most important part, right? Why do you think a video game is bad? Why do you think this certain aspect is terrible? But there are those that are incredibly militant about it and just dismiss you the moment you say it's terrible. Fanboys exist, and they're going to be very militant about it. That doesn't mean that you can't be unreasonable with it. So in conclusion, you can disagree and be emotional all you want. call people names all you want, but at least have reasonable points. At least try to engage what they're trying to argue. At least try to confront some of the major criticisms that people have on your work. You can be a professional and clarify some of the mistakes and admit to your own, or be like Amy Schumer and make conspiracy theories. Your choice. Before we end this video, good God, these Patreon donations are getting more and more insane. Stephen Vietti, Steph M, Neil Anthony Camerlengo, Brian Hussey, and Rodrigo Lessa. Thanks for the pledges on Patreon, guys. You guys are fantastic. And someone also made a really nice fan art for me, which is still a sketch, but for what it is, it kind of makes me look like a chick. Ambiguous. But thanks for the fan art regardless. That's all for the video today. If you like this, you can go ahead, click the like button, and subscribe for more. If you wish, you can support me on Patreon. And thanks for watching.